Some things that I struggle with in mental health are depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. Yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me. Does anybody else want to go?
I'll go. My name's Abby. I'm 24. I actually just recently became a mental health advocate this week. So this is my first Zoom meeting. So I'm kind of excited just to kind of um, talk with, the other people about it. I told Joey, but I currently work at a nonprofit for adults with mental illness. And so it's just something I'm really passionate about in terms of helping other people and spreading awareness and kind of like what we're all trying to do, which is break the stigma. So yeah.
I can go. My name's Nick. I prefer they, them pronouns. I struggle with anxiety and depression. I'm 19 years old and I'm an artist, so a lot of what I want to do is bring awareness of mental health through my art.
That's awesome.
I'm Kenya. I also just became an advocate this week. So this is my first meeting. I'm 18. I live in Connecticut and I go to college in Pennsylvania. I struggle with depression, anxiety, and OCD primarily. And yeah, I'm just excited to learn more about it.
Hi, I'm Casey. This is my first meeting as well. I live in Florida and I'm currently studying organizational leadership, but I actually want to help build like foundations that help people with mental health problems because I've struggled with anxiety and depression since early as 11 years old. So I really just wanted to join to help walk with people down this journey because it's not easy.
Yeah.
It was really nice to meet all of you guys. Definitely some new faces. I think the last week I saw, or the last at the last meeting I saw Nick and I got to meet them and that was really fun. So do you guys want to talk about our weeks? I think I can go first, or if there's anything that you guys would like to talk about. I'm pretty anxious and I don't really know how to do this, but I guess I'll start off talking about my week. So I had finals this week, and you guys all know how high school is. It's not very fun, but yeah, so I had finals and I did pretty well on them, which I'm really happy about. Um, but something about me is that I need to have things to do, so I'm really scared of break because I won't have anything to do besides, sit around and do things like relaxing, which it might seem really funny, but that's scary to me. So I'm really scared to just relax and have no schedule and itinerary. Um, so I think I'm going out of town this weekend and I'm gonna stay safe, obviously, with the restrictions and stuff, but I need to get out of here and get out of my head for a little bit. So that's what I'm doing for Christmas. And my dad is traveling today, so we're celebrating our Christmas tonight, actually. So we're opening presents and stuff during dinner, and I'm excited for that tonight. Yeah, I guess that's how my week has been. I'm super excited for break and New Year's, and I can't wait for 2021. I hope to God it's so much better than 2020. Yeah. Does anyone else want to share?
I can go. I totally felt what you said about like being scared about having nothing to do. Like I've felt that. I finished my last final on Tuesday and I immediately sunk into just like, went from doing everything constant, like working so hard to just like doing absolutely nothing and I couldn't get out of bed. And I was just in that space of like just darkness and like didn't want to do anything, but then that like stresses me out because like I'm like I need to be doing something, but it's very easy to get stuck in that.
Yeah. I'll go. Yeah, my week's been very stressful. I didn't mention, but I do suffer a lot from like anxiety. And so it's just been like at an all-time high this past month because at work, we had to make everything virtual because of the pandemic, which is really, really hard to do because the whole purpose of our program is to engage socially and work together. And so to transition from doing that in person, having a space for that, to trying to have people engage virtually who also suffer from severe mental illnesses and also aren't very tech savvy, um, has just been like a struggle this whole year. But this month especially, we're trying to plan like our Christmas celebrations and our events and stuff. And one of my coworkers just quit, and so it's just been like very overwhelming because I have like all of this stress at work, and then I have all this stuff, my personal stuff going on. Like I'm trying to go like homemade this year. So I'm so exhausted when I get home. Like I try to make time for like me and, do that self-care and, take care of everything I have to. So I just feel like this week I felt very overwhelmed with my to-do list. And I don't know. Today I didn't want to get out of bed, and yeah, that's just kind of how my week's been. But I'm also like just so excited for the new year. I hope things start to get better soon, because like I've seen, working where I do, I've really seen a decline in people's self-care. A lot of our members have started drinking again, or isolating, or just not doing well, which makes me really sad. It makes me emotional because it makes me think of all the other people who are stuck at home and not taking care of themselves. And it just really shows how like community and having other people in your life are so important. And so that's kind of like why I joined this kind of group, because I think it's just so great to just try to connect. And so yeah, it's just kind of how my week's been.
Yeah, my week has been definitely different from the past week. So I finished finals last week, I think. Yeah, last week. And so I also work. So I was at work all last week, but this week I work at a daycare. And so obviously, with the increase in numbers, parents are starting to pull kids out of school. And so I had less hours this week. And so I was just home, like kind of not really doing much. So it was a nice change because I'm not really used to that or really good at just not having anything to do. But I was definitely anxious to get back to work. And I went back to work today. It was exhausting for sure, but I missed the kids. Um, but yeah, it's just been like the week has been dragging on. So I'm excited that it's the weekend and I'm going to see my grandparents or my grandma this weekend, and we're all going to have a family dinner. So yeah.
My week's kind of been like a bit of a roller coaster. After I finished finals, it felt like I took a breath, but then I had something happen at work and in my personal life that just made it go back down. And so I think today, well, tonight actually, I did do like a little bit of like self care stuff just because I had like a really overwhelming day. So I think for as far as break from school, I'm just worried about isolating myself because I tend to do that during like school breaks and stuff where I just want to be by myself a lot, but I don't think that's really healthy because then I'm like alone with my anxious thoughts a lot more. So then it like becomes very unhealthy.
Yeah, I completely get what like all of you guys were talking about, and I feel so lucky to have like a space where we can all share what we want to and what we need to. So yeah, on I think leading into that, we can talk about kind of our goals as like advocates or what we want to change in our world. I don't even know if our generation is going to be the one to change it because there's a lot that needs to be changed. But I feel like we can start by talking about just like what we kind of want to change. Okay, so I'll start off. Definitely the school system is so messed up. Like just right off the bat, a lot of my issues came from school itself and just things that I faced at school. For example, we used to do weight checks at school, so unnecessary, but in PE, if you guys remember in your like elementary school years, like, and even middle school, they
Yeah.
used to do weight checks. And for me right now, that's so like triggering. And they put like your student IDs next to your weights on the bulletin boards and stuff for everyone to see, or at least at my like previous schools and stuff. And it was just so unnecessary, like the amount of pain that that caused people. And it told people that like your worth is based off of your weight, and that's just unnecessary. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I would really like to change, and especially just the whole stigma around, you know, if your grades are okay, then that means you're okay. Like I've always been that perfectionist, and that like I think I have high functioning depression. I don't know, but I've been diagnosed with major depressive, but I feel like I have high functioning because all the time I have my grades, they're fine. I do things, and I also have those days where I can't get out of bed, but most of the time it's like, oh, I'm going, and then one day I'll break down. But that going makes it seem as though I don't have anything that's wrong. And everyone's like, oh, like you should be fine, like you're okay. So I guess I really want to change that. I think one more thing is that because there's not a lot of attention to people with mental illnesses, there's not a lot of help out there, meaning like the resources that we have are so limited, and it's just awful. From personal experience, I went into the doctor's office to go for a weight check just to make sure everything was fine, just a normal one, and my weight was down. And then they made me. My doctor was talking to me about, my thoughts and behaviors around food, and I was like telling her clearly that there's something wrong, and there is like something so wrong that I actually need professional help. And she was like, no, you don't. Like your weight is fine. Like your vitals are fine. So that makes me want to prove myself. um, and so, like, even though I did prove myself, like, they told me that there were no beds available at the hospital, even though, like, I was critically low and my vitals were low. And I know so many people have gotten turned away, and that's because our resources for mental health are so low. Like, it's just so sad. But yeah, so I guess I really want to change that, and I want to make sure that more people get the help that they need, but at the same time I want to make sure that it's not too overgeneralized, because I know I have a lot of people in my life who are like, one day they'll be sad and then suddenly they'll have depression or something like that. And I don't want it to be something that's all over TikTok, like, oh, like you should eat this much, this is how much you should eat, this is what OCD is. Oh, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, oh, straightening up the pens in the table is OCD. Like, no, it's not. Like, yeah. So I want to make sure that it's definitely the stigma around it is gone, but definitely that there is not too less of a stigma, if that makes sense. Like, it's not too generalized. Yeah. So I guess those are my goals as an advocate.
I totally get what you're saying. Like, you don't want it to be glorified. And I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes I see that in social media, and it's like it's not like it's painful. Like it's not like this great thing that you're making it out to be, or like hashtag relatable, or like it's I really hate that. And I really agree with you on the education system. I think that's a really big thing, because that is school is a place we spend a lot of our time in, like,
Mhm.
you know I was thinking about it the other day. It's just like that. It's such an impactful place, and from such a young age to middle school, high school, and college, if people choose to go that route. But it's and I think about like the days when I was really depressed and I didn't couldn't be in class and my anxiety was bad, and I'd go to the nurse's office, and like an ice pack's not going to fix this. Like there needs to be more care and understanding for that. And my college also, like, I was having a difficult time, and they didn't even have my school doesn't even have a health center, which I don't even know if that's allowed, but they didn't have that even available for any students. um, but there definitely need to be more resources for that, and not just a physical injury. Mental is just as important.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. And the fact that it even has to get to that point where like you are self-harming or having, ideation, like that's just so sad. I wish people would notice it earlier and kind of prevent it from happening. Like things like, making sure from a young age that you have a person that you can always talk to, or making sure that from a young age you are loved and your worth doesn't come from your appearance, or things like your thoughts don't define you and whatever's going on in your head is real and it's valid. I think if they shared that message when you were younger and you grew up with that, this would all be prevented. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing, I don't know if you guys had this, but I know in our school we would have to like fill out these forms like once or like twice a year. Um and it was a bunch of questions about like your safety at school. And like I live in Connecticut, so obviously we had the Newtown shooting. But so it was all about like your safety and if you feel safe at school and if there's teachers that you can talk to and all this stuff. And like they just want the answer to be yes. But then I thought about it and I was like, honestly, no. Like there's just such a separation between like there's such a separation between like school and personal life, and it's kind of really hard to cross that barrier with your teacher. And I mean, I understand that you're supposed to like keep it professional, but at the same time, like Nick said, like we are spending the majority of our days and our time at school. Like we're at school for 40 hours a week. And so with school being our primary focus and with us seeing our teachers maybe more than we see our own parents or something like that, I think that gap definitely needs to be narrowed a bit for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys like brought up school, because I also agree that that's where um like I disagree with like what you were saying about the weight, like displaying your weight. I also just remember like having to run a mile in a certain amount of time, and if you did it in like this amount of time you got an A, or this amount of time B and C and D. And then it's like almost like there's some people like physically who can't do that, and then it's just making you feel you know so small and so unworthy and almost shameful. So I always like never agreed or understood why, or like why, what was the purpose of all of that. Obviously physical activity and being healthy is important, but I definitely think that the approach that they use could be better. And I was watching this TED talk the other day about just like mental health and like breaking the stigma, and it brought up a lot of good points where they we as a society, we don't view mental illness like we view a medical condition. But if we did, I mean, like, he was saying, like, imagine if everyone saw having a mental illness as a medical condition, we could launch this public health initiative to fight it, to break it, and do something about it. And so it just was like, and like you guys have said, like the lack of resources, the lack of awareness, and the stigma that it has really kind of, I feel, makes it very hard for people who don't understand it or don't even think to or even think about it would understand. So like for me personally, I also agree. I wish there was like a mental health survey that kids kids going through school could take, you know, every so often, or a check-in, you know, make it like, I don't know, mandatory, or I guess more available, or I don't know, like specifically, but, you know, checking in, kind of how you said, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Kenya.
Kenya, how you were saying like they do this little checklist about our safety. You know, I wish they would add more mental health questions and did that everywhere. I mean, even at work, like in a workspace, like I don't think any of my bosses ever asked any of us like how we're doing, you know, as employees, as a person. And I just feel like if people asked more, if we made it our business to ask more and to be, I guess, I don't know. I think it's a matter of speaking about it and not criticizing someone. And I don't know, I guess for me, like I just want to make it so that people are asked more how they're doing, having that. And like you guys said, like not generalizing it, because two people could have bipolar disorder and it be completely different. You know, two people can have depression and it shows so different. So I agree, like I don't want it to be generalized. And I hate how, like, I don't know if you guys see like the memes about mental illness, and it's like, yeah, it's relatable, but it also isn't funny, and it also is really serious. So I guess changing the way it's brought up. And just something I thought about right now is just like the whole breaking the stigma in genders as well, and just, you know, not I don't know, I guess there's so, like you said, there's so much to change, and I don't know if our generation's going to be the one to change it, but I'd love to be the start of that. I'd love for us all to be the start of like something greater, something bigger, something better for the next generations and the generations to come. And, you know, I think that does start with the school system, because, you know, we're thrown in there when we're 3, 4, and then, you know, another thing, sorry. He said, even from a young age, we're taught when someone asks you, oh, how are you doing today? Our response is like, oh, I'm fine. How are you? Oh, I'm doing good. How are you? You know, and it's like, and that's not always the case. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to work to be done. And I guess my part in being a part of this organization is just bringing that awareness, or and sharing my story, which I plan to share with everyone eventually. And yeah. I don't know.
Mine would be to kind of prioritize, especially like students' mental health, the way we prioritize testing, because a lot of my anxiety came from taking standardized testing and just feeling like if I don't make this grade, then I'm a failure. Like, and I think a lot of students feel that way, that you get to a point where like, okay, you're about to apply for college, and they're like, well, you need a good grade on the SAT to get this for college, to get this. And I think a lot of students just feel all of the pressure to make a good grade, and sometimes the pressure makes them fail instead of do a good job, because it's just a lot. You feel like it's like this is the biggest life decision, and you're like 17, 18 years old at the time, and it's like I'm supposed to decide now what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm supposed to decide all of this is going to be decided by this one test score. And so I think making mental health a priority before testing, because if you're mentally not in a good place, you're not going to do well on that test. You're not going to make make good decisions if you're not in the best mental state.
I